Hey folks, welcome to week 13 of Intro to Digital Media Design. Week 13, I can't believe we're this far along in the semester already. Only a few weeks left. All right, so before we dive into what we're going to be doing this week, just a reminder that you can contact me by email anytime you would like. And I have weekly online office hours, which are posted in announcements via Zoom. I would certainly love to see you all there. Remember, those are set up in a waiting room setting, so I only talk to one person at a time, but you can all sort of queue up and get in line, so you won't be bunched in with everybody, but you are certainly encouraged to do so. Would like to see everybody's face at some point. I hope you're all doing well, staying productive, and during these trying times here. So certainly do reach out to me. I just want to make sure everybody's doing all right. Okay, so week 13, what are we doing? All right, so over here at the syllabus, we normally would have met April 20th, 22nd, and 24th. You guys just last week finished up your draft for your title sequence, which was step 4, which is getting critiqued or has been critiqued right now. So that's good. So once you get your critique back on your draft, be sure to check Canvas for feedback from me. Once you get your critique, you can go ahead and start fixing it or making any changes or updating it. Or perhaps you did a splendidly awesome job right off the bat and don't have to do a thing. But there's probably a little bit to fix. There's always stuff to do, no matter how great it might be. So for the remainder of the semester, you'll be working on making the final version of it. Now, as for what's left, we've got a couple of weeks of some more visual literacy topics. This week is going to be typography and letter forms. We're going to talk a little bit about this. This is going to be a bit of a brief, more brief lecture today, just because there's a couple of videos to watch and some stuff for you guys to read, which we really can't do together on the online announcement, but I'll go over some of the basics. Then next week we get into semiotics, which we'll talk about that next week. And then we have our last media analysis in week 15, which will be from about a piece of design. And then, of course, week 16 is where you guys turn in your final version of your title sequence and give each other feedback, not just me. So that'll be exciting. Okay, so typography and letter form. So in Files, in Canvas, underneath the week 13 folder, you'll find a bunch of typography related items, specifically these here. And so one thing we're going to talk about typography today. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of typography, where it came from. We're going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of typography, and we'll talk a little bit about how designers use typography to get a viewer's attention by making certain types of choices in terms of what fonts they choose, the way those fonts are represented in terms of type styles or weight or size, the way they are used in terms of layout and placement, and even how color affects type. All of these things will be covered in these different areas, and the idea is that, of course, you are using typography in your title sequence to put the names of the actors, the title of the movie, the name of the director, and so what you never really want to do in any type of design is you don't want to put a whole ton of work into your imagery, and then when it comes time to put the type down, just kind of slap down any old type. Remember, visual design is essentially a 50-50 marriage between typography and visual image, whether that be still image or moving image, it doesn't matter. Typography is just as important, and so treating it like an afterthought is never a good idea. And so putting some thought into the font choices, and how they're placed, and even just the basic use of color goes a long way. All right, so let's take a look at a couple of things. So in announcements, you're going to find a typography announcement, just says typography on it, this one here. And this has this really great video. It's beginning typography for graphic designers, which is this video. Watch it on your own, check it out. It's from some people we've looked at some of their work before. They do great little introductory videos, and it's only 6 minutes long. So it'll give you a nice little primer as to what sort of modern use of typography is and just sort of the basics about how to handle it properly. Okay, now moving back over here, let's take a look at this. So let's talk about the way we view typography as viewers, as readers, as audience members. And in doing so, we can sort of uncover some of the tools that you as a designer can use to your advantage. Because remember, one thing about letter forms and typography is that not only are they read, right? We read letters, we read words, we know what they say. We've been doing this since we were little kids. So everything you learned from how to write letters, how to draw them properly, phonics, how they are enunciated, how you say the sounds out loud, all the way up through complex word use and sentence structure, all of that is already baked into your head. And so as a designer, you can be confident that people know how to read, which I know sounds really obvious, but people forget that and forget that they can take some chances with their typography and still not lose the audience. So I'll give you some real simple examples. So this here, so I'm going to have you take a second to look at these and tell me what letters are these that you're looking at. All right, go ahead, take a second. I'll wait. Okay, so if you said that those are the vowels, A, E, I, O, U, you are correct. And so how is it that you knew those were the vowels? Now, when I show this in class, it usually takes somebody in class less than a second to determine that these are the vowels. So how is it that we knew that when they're not clearly shown, right? They're not lined up on a horizontal line, nice and neat, A, E, I, O, U. Also, they're all uppercase letters, which is not normally the way we see the vowels. And of course, they overlap each other. They're turned on their sides. Well, like I said, there is so much readability and literacy baked into your head already in terms of understanding these letters from a reading point of view that all you need is some clues and your brain immediately fills in the difference, right? So you see the triangular point at the top of the A, you see the curve of the U, and immediately your brain is sort of like, wait a minute, A, U, I, that's got to be the vowels, and you're done. Even if you didn't immediately recognize all of those specific letters, you're giving the viewer enough information that that baked in literacy into their brain fills in the rest. So if you think about that, audience members, whether they're looking at a title sequence in a movie or you're looking at a designed poster or some other complex or interesting or artistic piece of typography, the audience is already coming there with so much knowledge that you can take chances with these letter forms. Now you're probably hearing me say the word letter form over and over again, and you're probably thinking, aren't they just letters? Well, in design we call them letter forms, and the reason for that is because while they are of course letters and they're meant to be read, they're also interesting geometric shapes. So think about that. You know how to read these, but what if we were looking at an alphabet that you did not know how to read? What if we were looking at Mandarin characters from the Chinese language? They might be beautiful looking characters, they might be nicely structured, you might think they're attractive to look at, but you can't read them. But you can appreciate their beauty and appreciate how they're built and how they're put together. Same thing with these letter forms. The difference is you know how to read these. So part of what you're trying to do is reminding yourself that, yeah, I can read these, but they're also really good to look at and they're nicely shaped. And as designers, you can use those geometric shapes to your advantage. Okay, let's look at another example of what I'm talking about here. Okay, so I'll give you a second. Tell me what this says. Okay, if you were just yelling at your computer screen, it says hidden. A, I can't actually hear you. But B, you are correct. It is the word hidden, right? And of course, this is sort of a double entendre, right? It is the word hidden, and half of the word is hidden. Now, this is a bit of a joke, but the idea is, of course, that you don't have to show the entire word, and people can still read it. You're not going to fool anybody by eliminating, as we did here, 50% of the word. We have enough knowledge in our head that you're not tricking anybody. They can figure it out just based on what is shown, and what is not shown gets filled in by the brain. So again, that's a tool that you as a designer can use when working with typography. If you eliminate certain letters, if you replace letters with symbols, which you might have seen, right? If you were to show the word pizza and you replace the A in pizza with an actual drawing of a pizza slice, no one's going to get confused. They're still going to read the word, and it helps emphasize the meaning of the word, right? In this case, if we eliminate part of the word, people can still read it. If you mess up the letters, if you make them kind of grungy or erase part of them or obscure part of them one way or another, you're still going to get readability. The trick here is in finding that balance between readability and artistic design, right? So picture a teeter-totter at a playground or a scale, right? And you want to sort of balance it. On one side, you've got simple readability, and on the other side, you've got really artistic, super creative, very funky. You want to find the balance so that people can still read what you've put down typographically, but you make it visually interesting. And this is just another way to do that, to obscure letters, eliminate letters, change letters, etc. All right, so again, so far, we've got overlapping letters, moving them around. Then we've got hiding or obscuring pieces of letters. Okay, now let's look at this one. Okay, so the question I'm going to ask you is, of these two letters, which one is closer to you? Okay, I'll give you a second. Okay, so if you answered that the letter A is closer to you in space, you're wrong. If you answered that the letter U was closer to you in space, you're also wrong. Why? Well, because you're looking at a computer screen. This is a two-dimensional space. There is no third dimension. But this is what you call implied perspective. Because as humans, we live in a three-dimensional world, right? Everything around us is three-dimensional. Our brain expects things to be three-dimensional. And so when you take some of the basic tropes of three-dimensionality and put them in front of somebody, even if it's a visual illusion like this is, your brain is going to want to assume that something is true. So in real life, of course, if something is larger, it's probably closer to you. If it's smaller, it's further away. If you're standing in the middle of a road and a car is suddenly getting bigger as it gets towards you, you should probably get out of the way because it's coming towards you, right? So this is, now of course this illusion of perspective can be done with other geometric shapes, not just letter forms, but it works particularly well with letter forms because it gives the idea of a false baseline. What's a baseline? Well, sometimes referred to as a horizon line when you're talking about painting or photography. In typography, the baseline is that imaginary shelf that the letters appear to be sitting on. And you can see that all you're really doing is raising the baseline for the U and lowering the baseline for the A, and then adjusting the size of each one. They're not even overlapping each other to create even more of an illusion. It's just simply a matter of raising the baseline and changing the scale. So that's another way you can play around with letter forms to really play around with the way it's presented and give the audience something interesting to look at. Okay, now let's talk about negative space. Okay, so one of the things to pay attention to with letter forms is, again, we're trying to look at them as shapes as well as being able to read them. Well, negative and positive space is really important when you're talking about things like painting and drawing and logo design and graphics and all that, but also in terms of typography. The actual letter itself, in this case the black letter, all these letters, by the way, are just done in Times New Roman. It's the exact same font throughout this whole presentation, so it's pretty simple. So that's the positive space, the black letters. Now the white background is of course the negative space, and most interestingly is the pieces of negative space that are created when you overlap or intersect the type. So of course the triangle in the middle of the uppercase A, which is there all the time, is a built-in piece of negative space, but then if we overlap these two letters, the U and the A, that creates this other interesting piece of negative space, right? So, you know, AU, UA, right? Okay. And we'll see another example of that with this one. Some more interesting negative space just by overlapping them. And even if you just have your letters intersect each other, like here, we have these pieces of these letters touching each other. Now, since we're talking about pieces of letters, let's talk about letter form anatomy. So, Times New Roman is what we call a serifed typeface, meaning it has these little feet or these little flags that stick out from the top and the bottom of the letters. Serif typefaces tend to have a more serious look to them. They're a little more old-fashioned, they're a little more classic looking, and so those have a particular type of personality based on their anatomy. Other types of typefaces have a different type of personality, also based on their anatomy. Now this here is Avenir, which is a different font, and this is what we call a sans serif typeface. And of course, you'll see that it doesn't have those little flags or feet. The letter forms are just more straight and blocky looking. So sans serif, of course, is from the Latin, sans being without, serif, sans serif. And these are more modern looking and a little more clean looking, and they have a different type of personality. Now, beyond that, there are what we call specialty fonts, which could be a variety of different things. They could be fonts that resemble other fonts or other types of things, like the NASA logo font or the Star Star Wars logo font. Those are a little on the nose. And then things like this, like marker felt, is supposed to look like it's drawn with a magic marker. So it has a lot of personality kind of already built into it. Now, specialty fonts can be fun, but you have to be careful that they have too much personality because they already sort of tell a story before you do anything to them, before you decide on a size or a placement or the color or whatever. It's already telling you, hey, this is drawn with magic marker, which maybe you don't want in your title sequence or what other piece of design. And then the last type of font is what is a script font. This here is Snell Round-Handed, which is a script font. And script fonts, of course, are meant to look like calligraphy or handwriting. So those are sort of the four categories of type. We've got script, we've got specialty, we've got sans serif, and we've got serifed. Those four are the four major categories. Each of those categories have sort of baked-in personalities to them, but serifed and sans serif tend to be more up for interpretation by the viewer and more open for the designer, meaning you, to do things to it like change the color, add texture, lay them out certain ways to add a specific type of personality to it. Whereas specialty fonts like this marker felt and script fonts like this one here, they already have a lot of personality that comes with them, which may or may not be appropriate for what you're doing. So just think heavily about those before you choose your fonts. Okay, the last thing we're going to look at is we did talk a little bit about anatomy of letter forms. Now, if this was a typography class, we would be spending a lot of time on this. I mean, we'd be spending all 16 weeks on typography. But you would have to learn the anatomy of letter forms. You'd get quizzed on it, there's vocabulary, and we're not doing that in this class, but I just want you to be aware of the fact with this handout, this is the letter form anatomy handout from week 13, that the pieces of letters and that invisible structure that they interact with, which is represented in this handout by these blue lines, that's the invisible structures. Right, I told you about the baseline is that invisible shelf that type seems to be sitting on top of. These all have a whole history and depth to them, things that are sort of important. And we're not going to go through this whole handout here, but you should certainly read through this on your own just to become familiar with it. It's just part of visual design and something you should be generally aware of. At minimum, if you learn all these anatomical parts of typography, it'll give you something to talk about at dinner parties that will entirely bore everybody else at the party. No, I'm kidding. Typography has a bad reputation for being kind of boring, but I happen to be a bit of a type geek and I love typography, and most people who work in design at least have to have some kind of affection for typography because, like I said, it's 50% of the gig. Okay, so that is it for today. Make sure to watch the video on typography, read through those handouts, and just sort of start thinking about a little more about how are you going to handle the typography in your title sequence. Are you happy with the way you handled it for your draft after talking about typography a little bit now and thinking about it? Do you think you can go back and make some changes, maybe add a little more personality to the type? Does it feel appropriate for your images? Really think about how you can make the typography work for you. All right, guys. Hope you're all doing well and taking good care of yourself. Remember, I do have the weekly online office hours. You are certainly encouraged to drop in and say hi, but otherwise, I will talk to you soon.